This is my solution for problem 3 of the LeetCode challenges called the longest substring without repeating characters. The description says, given a string s, find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. At the top, I've just initialized a random string, and over here is the shell for the function which I'm going to fill out. Now, my solution uses a brute force approach, which analyzes every single substring in the given string, which will run in order and squared time, which isn't very efficient at all. But this was my first attempt for this question. So to start off the question, I'm going to initialize two variables. One is the final length, which we initialize to 0. And then I'm also going to count the index, which I'm initializing to 0. Now, I'm going to loop through every single character that we currently have. So the current character that we're at will be called the cur char. And we're looping through s, which is the given string. Now, every single time we make this loop, we're going to restart our substring, which we'll call cur string, and that will just be the current char that we have. This should be lowercase. Okay, then another thing I want to initialize is the current length, which will make 1 because we only have one element or one character in our substring. And then I'm going to create a list, which I'm going to start appending certain characters to. The first character that we're going to include is the current character that we're at. Now over here, we're going to start looping through the remaining characters. So I'm going to create a variable called the next char's indice, or ind, and we're going to loop in the range of index count plus 1 to the very end, so the length of the string. There we go. Now we want to create a new variable which I'll call next char, which is just the character that we're at. So because our loop is only looping through the indices, not actually the character itself, so we have to initialize the character. Then what we're going to do is we're going to check if this next character is in the list that we have above, the current list which we have up here. And if that is the case, we're going to break out of this loop because we don't want to continue anymore. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to start updating some of our strings or some of our variables. So we're going to update the string to include the next character. So we're just going to concatenate that using the plus and equals. The length is also going to update by 1. So we'll update the current length by 1. And then we're going to update our list by appending the next character to our list. So that ends this loop. Now what we're going to do outside of the second loop is we're going to do a check. So if our current length is greater than our final length, we're going to save this substring. So our final string is going to equal to the current string. Then we're going to update our final length to be equal to the current length. And this will only update every time we find a new substring of a length which is greater than the final length we have saved. And then what we're going to do is at the very end of this loop, we're going to update our index count. So we update it by 1. And then what else I'm going to do, just so we can see, visualize that to make sure that it actually is working, is we're going to print out our final string, just to make sure that it's working correctly. Now, LeetCode wants us not to return the final string, it just wants the length. So we're going to only return the final length. But I'm printing out the final string. This is just so we can visually see that the code does work. So I'm going to run the Python file in the terminal. And we should hopefully see VDF, which is correct, which is the longest substring without repeating characters. Now, I'm going to try out another example. I'm going to try out LeetCode's example, which is ABC, ABC, BB. So if we run this in the terminal, we get ABC, which is also correct. I'm also going to try another example. I'm going to try reoccurring B's and run this in the terminal. And we just get B, which is also correct. And I've submitted this to LeetCode. It was correct, but unfortunately, like I said earlier, this runs in n squared time, which is not very quick at all. In fact, it runs a lot slower than a lot of the solutions provided. Now, one of the solutions that LeetCode provided on their website was a very elegant solution which used a sliding window, which uses a dictionary or a counter. So I want to include this last bit of code, which I'll get from the LeetCode website. I just want to put this at the top just for memory, so when I do look at this in the future, hopefully I have used this, I've imported this same method in my new solution. So what they start with is they start with a line from collections import counter. Now, what counter is it works exactly like a dictionary, except it saves the amount of instances of the element that exists in the dictionary. So this is really beneficial because you can use this with the sliding window, and it gives you a solution which runs in the order of n time complexity, which is definitely much better. Otherwise, this is currently my solution to problem 3 of the LeetCode challenge.